share my screen. I'm going to take a minute of your time, guys. Thanks for joining Lean Agile Network. If you see there is something on top of my head, this is not pizza. This is one of those celebration hats on top. We are we are celebrating. November is our anniversary month, so we are 4 years into this, and the next year will be our 5th year. Yay! Doing this. So, and we are very happy to have you guys because it's because of you that is keep going, and going. You can find us on the website. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, we are on Meetup, we are in a Slack group if you want to have more in-depth conversation. And we put our stuff on YouTube where we record them. If you have any concerns about the recording, if you don't want to be part of the recording that we put on the YouTube, let us know and we can edit that out, or we can take care of your concern. Two things before I hand it over. So we are advocating for other communities as well. So this link here, bit.ly/lean agile community, it gets you to a post that I wrote and listed some of the good communities that are out there in North America. And the other one that I created, virtualagilecommunity.com. This is a page which everyone can contribute to. If you have an event that you want to share with other people around the world, you can come and put it here, put the information there, and it's going to be popped up here. We have any kind of event that you can see. There's training is going to be on there, free conferences, open spaces, anything. And this is the list of the events that we're already part of, are more than 100 that we listed there. So virtualagilecommunity.com, share your events and find your next good events to go to. Quickly, for the people that are new to Lean Agile Network, we every last Friday of the month, we get together, we bring some expert from the world of Lean Agile to teach us something and interact with us to elevate us. And we try to every second week of the month, depending on the month and depending on the topic, to have a kind of a lean coffee. So for everyone to network and everyone to get together and share all of our ideas. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it to my good friend Savita and Mark. We are very privileged to have them over, and we are very excited to hear them. And without any further ado, please give them a big round of applause. Mark and Savita.
I'll give applause for Savita. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us here, Shaheen and Wayne and everybody who's online with us here. If you would please, find your way to the Zoom chat and tell me two things. One, where you're at, because there might be people outside your local area. And also, what are you thankful for? So where are you at and what are you thankful for? So I'm even going to put one in there. So I put Orlando and thankful for this community. So thank you for that. Great, great. So that's also to get you into the chat, which Savita and I will also be kind of keeping an eye on. We like kind of getting the questions out there. You certainly can ask questions at the end, but if you want to drop some on the topics, please do that. So a little bit about me. I'm a coach based out of Orlando, Florida. As a matter of fact, this is a picture of my backyard, and you can maybe see the Falcon 9 launch behind me here. So I can actually sit in my backyard and watch those launches. This is why I've stayed in Orlando primarily, because I can geek out on my space launches. But also, I have worked with distributed teams for a number of years, actually longer than I've worked with Agile teams. And I put a call out this summer and say, hey, who would like to do some talks on this? And Savita was kind enough to reach out and say, yeah, I'd like to pair with you on this because I also like collaborating. It's something I like to do. And so we're actually, this is going to be a paper that's published. We've got a couple of different places that this talk has been, and we are glad to bring it to you as well. So Savita, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mark. I am Savita. I am agile coach working currently with a financial organization in Toronto area. I have worked with distributed teams in many different roles. I am a computer science graduate and I started my career as a Java developer, which is quite interesting because at that time I was facing a lot of challenges, not having the clear visibility what's coming from different locations. And that's how I got into this topic of how to work with distributed teams some time back. Slowly, I moved into Scrum Master role, and from last more than 7 years, I have been working as Agile coach. I have worked in India and multiple places in Asia, particularly in Singapore, and moved to Toronto 2 years ago. Um, I'm certified enterprise coach and team coach from Scrum Alliance. This topic came into my mind when we started working virtually because my experience of working with distributed teams is very different than when we all started working from home. Because at that time, at least I could see few people in person in the office and few virtually. Now everyone is virtual. So that's how we ended up to this topic about Scrum Master's superpower of observation. So, what happens? Let me know if you have been into the situation where you are justifying to traditional project managers or leaders when they ask that Scrum Master facilitate Scrum events. What else do we do? So we keep on the defensive mode and telling them, no, we observe the team behavior, we bring the improvements, we coach the organization, we coach the team. Okay, how do we do it when we all are working virtually? While working virtually, we get to see our team only in the meetings through audio or through video. How are you observing your team to bring these improvements? So I kept on thinking about this entire March and April. I had to do something about it. And I learned few tips from some professionals who are doing coaching over the phone last so many years. And I tried few things, which I'm going to explain in this presentation today. So first thing about observation, we do the observation using any of our senses, our touch, feel, smell, or hearing, speaking, seeing. When we are doing conversation with our teams these days, we can speak, we can listen, we can see if they are on the video, or we can chat. That the only, we cannot observe their own work environment. We don't know what kind of distractions they are going through. Cannot smell. We cannot touch, feel. There are so many things which we cannot do. So the only skill which became so prevalent while working from home is listening, because we can always listen. So how to use this skill at most to bring the observation and the improvement to the Scrum team? So what do you think about listening? What listening is? Would you like to share on the chat? Let me stop sharing. Whatever comes to your mind, you can write on the chat. What do you think what listening is? Okay, I got tone, hearing with intent, responses, no judgment. Yeah, interest and empathy. So you all got almost everything right. It's the combination of so many good points here. So listening is not only hearing what a speaker says. It's about listen, keep the judgment aside, and reflect back. Close the loop of what you listen, whether it's right or wrong. Okay, so you listen, you share what you listen back to the speaker and get the feedback. So that's how you close the loop about your understanding after the listening. So this is listening. Do we do it when we are facilitating our agile meetings or ceremonies these days? Because we have so many people in our uh, Zoom calls. We sometimes just listen and we have so many distractions going on here and there. You don't know what is happening behind me. Uh, or fire alarm comes up and then I just mute myself. You don't know what is happening. Or so many people start speaking at the same time. Or there are some broken voices and everything. So what happens is that in these kind of situations, we have to pay more attention to the listening. Okay. And how you can close the loop, whether you understood well what a speaker said, is by reflecting it back. So what you can do, something like that. So you can share what I am hearing is, you can ask the question, hey, what I am hearing is blah, blah, blah. You share the message back again. Or you can say, it sounds like you are saying XYZ. And let the speaker respond back to you whether you understood it well or not. Only then you can say that, okay, you have listened properly. Okay, these are some tips. So what we are going to do right now is I would like to do a little bit of exercise here to understand how listening works when we are working like that online. So for this, I would request 3 volunteers. It's a very simple thing. You just come here. I request you, if you want, you can put your video on or keep it off, up to you. These 3 people are going to have a conversation for 2 minutes, talk about their hobbies. That's it. Very simple thing, no big task. Just talk about your hobbies within the group of 3 people, and everyone else pay attention and listen. Okay? And then we'll reflect back on our listening. So, who are our volunteers here? Okay, we got Lucy. Who else? I'm sorry if I can't see everyone because I have 2 screens. Thank you, San. One more. If you have hobbies or you are planning to work on new hobby as your new year resolution, you can talk about it.
I can go if no one wants to go.
Okay, Shaheen, thank you. So we got Lucy, San, and Shaheen. You get 2 minutes to talk among yourself about your hobbies. You can ask questions, your thoughts. Okay, so you can start.
Okay, so let's ask Lucy, I'm gonna give a lady first chance. What would you like to talk about your hobbies?
Hi. My hobbies are, well, right now I've picked up knitting again, just for fun. I hadn't touched this for a long time, for a year. So I took out my needles a couple days ago. And outdoors, I enjoy hiking, um, yoga. Well, I'm doing it at home right now, but I on YouTube, and in the winter, skiing. Those are my main activities slash hobbies. what about, I'll pass it to Shaheen then.
Hobbies. When you talked about the ski, you threw me off. I had my hand broken snowboarding, so I was like, what can I talk about? Like hobbies? No. But I used to like that. I used to like that. But after the incident, I have not good time thinking about it or even when going around it. But if I want to talk about my own hobby, um, maybe my hobby is just to register domain names. I have so many domain name registered that I don't know why do I do that. Like every time, like there's some good comes to mind, and I register. So the latest one that I register is kanban.works. I'm like, okay, so why did you do that? Like probably in a year you're not going to re-register, but it seems it's a good idea. And there are plenty other like that I register. So that's something that keeps my mind off. It feels like fun, and I do it on an occasion by occasion basis. I don't need schedule for it. So that I categorize that as a hobby. How about you,
Okay,
Sam?
so I will take mine. Is a lot of it is traveling. I traveled almost out of 5 continents, 4 I have traveled, and I've traveled a lot using lesser used means, in the sense I was in Europe. I traveled many countries on buses and trains instead of flying in and out of one place. And that's when you learn about, different architecture, different civilizations, how they have come across. Even in I'm based in GTA, but traveling in Canada and US by road, you get to see how the civilization developed from one stage to the other stage, and you can see that. And that's been unfortunately, because of COVID, it's not happening now, but plan is to do it. And along with that comes the associated things such as photography and things like that. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and we have a proverb in Persian that says you get to know people when you travel with them. So so that's that when you talked about, oh, we are getting this thing.
What happened, Shaheen?
I saw you did this. I'm like, okay, so my time's up.
Yeah, sorry. So you all took more than 2 minutes. So I had to stop you. That's how you can use your hand gestures when you are in a little small box on the screen. Okay, thank you for the volunteers. Now I would invite the listeners. What did you listen? And you would say one sentence about what did you listen. And now the volunteers will give the feedback to the listener whether it was the right understanding or not. Okay. So anyone wants to share? What did you listen? Okay, Wayne, sure.
Okay, let me give you the brief synopsis of each conversation and see if I get this right. So Lucy, I heard you're taking up knitting again because you've done it in the past and now you're going to try it again. Shaheen, you've got a plethora of domain names, including a Kanban one, which I'm not quite sure. And San, you've been to 5 continents and traveled in unconventional ways often.
Yeah.
Everything is right. Wow, awesome. You just forgot one thing.
One thing, forgot one thing.
Yeah.
First of all, Wayne is wearing pizza on his head. That's the first thing. And the second
is.
thing is
I am not the only one who actually interpreted that.
that is a pepperoni pizza. I'm sorry.
And it's supposed to be a party hat, but no, that's what Savita thought too. She's hungry.
Pepperoni, basil, marguerite pizza, Wayne. Nice work. And San, I guess he's been to 4 continents of the 5.
Oh, 2 things.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I've not been to African continent, and that's on my to-do list. And luckily for me, my sister is in Kenya right now. So before they get transferred out, I mean, they are doctors and they are a part of the World Health Organization, and they are in Africa. So that's the next destination whenever possible. But it's a perfect thing. And I would like to give a quick thing which I learned is both Lucy and Shaheen, they are very creative people. Lucy is a creator. She's with her knitting, she's creating new things. She's bringing out new things, and that's a capability of an individual. Shaheen is a futuristic person who is doing work, laying foundation for something which can be used. And that's a very positive quality of a person.
So many foundations that I forget about some of them.
May not be used, but whatever is available can be used in multiple ways, and that's the creativity. That's the beauty of creativity. Besides Wayne's pizza hat, which is making me think like, okay, tonight dinner is going to be pizza.
Thank you, everyone. So what I would like to share with respect to that activity is that there were only 3 people. They just took turn and shared, I think, not more than a minute. And even then we got 2 things wrong. And you can imagine when we are 8 or 9 people working together, many people are having heated conversation, brainstorming, and trying to decide something. What happens? How much we can absorb from that conversation. And the good thing about that conversation is that just before the exercise, I shared listening is to close the loop. Ask the questions so that you understand what you said. So even if I ask the volunteers, they might have got 1 or 2 things wrong. And it happens because though we are paying attention, but there is too much to absorb, and it becomes more difficult when we are talking about complex topics in our day-to-day work. Yeah. So listening becomes very important when we are working like virtually. So I have a small incident to share. You might have noticed what happens is that have you ever been in the situation when you are facilitating a sprint planning and product owner explains the product backlog items and everyone in the team are nodding the heads and you assume that everyone is understanding what product owner is explaining? Then you go back, start the sprint, and then everyone has so many questions as if sprint planning never happened. Or it happened, but we lost what we understood. And it happens all the time, particularly when we are working virtually. As a Scrum Master, you can do 2 things. Either you can just ask the question to your team members, hey, do you remember what product owner said? Or do you understand what he is explaining? And you will again get the response, yes, yes. So it won't bring any value to the team. Instead, what you might be doing is asking open-ended question. So you can ask, do you anticipate any roadblock while you are going to build this product backlog item? So it will force team members to think through and understand and ask the right questions. Or you can simply ask, would you like to explain what you understood? So they will explain and then product owner replies back again. So it will close a lot of misunderstanding and gaps right there in the sprint planning. Okay. So for this, you can use some reflective coaching questions to bring good listening and observation. Can you read this? At what point did you notice ... Describe what happened when, and you share. Tell me more about ... And there is a long list of reflective questions which you can ask, which is also in our slide. You can use it back. Okay. So I think I leave you with some thinking about how to improve listening. Okay. And then Mark has more thoughts to share about observation. Yes, you will get the slides.
Yes, and just to show those questions are on the slides. Thanks, Savita. Sri had also mentioned in chat that the responses were very enthusiastic about restarting or continuing their hobbies and give some ideas about their character and feelings. And that is a great point as well. And a little bit more about me. I mentioned I had worked with distributed teams longer than agile teams. I've also written a book with Johanna Rothman on that. And I'm not waving it around to sell it, but I've actually been coaching agile teams for close to 20 years. So I've had even more experience with distributed teams, and it was much more difficult then than it is now. I mean, we have so many capabilities to tap into that enthusiasm, as Sri pointed out, and try to retune our listening, as Savita had pointed out as well. But sometimes we notice that there's not enthusiasm, and it's more of a understanding what's their context, where are they right now. And so sometimes a simple question like, how are you, can be quite challenging for some people to answer, especially this year. So let me paint a little bit of a picture or tell a little bit of a story here. So let's say we're all on a team together, and we might have our ups and downs, as you see here by the little waveform, and then some change is introduced. And that change could be a new process. Maybe it's Safe++ or something like that. Or maybe there's a new leader or a new team member or new tools, or maybe there's a new conflict on the team. So sometimes these are things we choose, sometimes it's things we don't choose. And it could be a change that's imposed upon us. So there could be an urgent request, a tool failure, a team member out sick unexpectedly, or something called a pandemic, which I think we've all experienced now. And regardless of what that change is, we all react in a certain way. So when we take on the change, we think, okay, things are a little cloudy, a little murky right now, but we think they're going to get better. We hope that things will get better eventually. And you know, especially this year, we know vaccines are coming out, and we all hope things are going to get better with this pandemic. However, when that change first occurs, you have to realize that we all have this dip that we go through. And we eventually bottom out at what's called a point of chaos. Now, I'm curious if any of you have seen this curve before. And if you have, go ahead and put the name of this curve in chat. Okay. Because in the next part, this is what's really happening. That change happens. Yep, J curve is one of those names for it, where we have that change and we're resisting the challenges this change brings to us. It's challenging assumptions, and we have to go through a bit of an unlearning process, and that's where our performance kind of goes down as we're wrestling with, how do we do this? Like, how do we work remote when we didn't plan on doing it? Or how do we take on this new process when perhaps it was suddenly imposed on us? Or even if we had training, we're still trying to figure out how to make this work. So there's disruption with that. But after a point of time, we start to get some ideas on how it might work. And we might start experimenting either through retrospectives or some other ways of doing short experiments to see how can we make things better? How can we take this new situation and make it better? And then we start to integrate that new learning, and we start building up some new assumptions. Okay, yeah, and some of you said, yeah, not quite an S curve. So J curve is one of them. This is sometimes referred to as the Satir change model. Another name for it is the Kubler-Ross model. It's actually been around quite a long time. And when I was learning my craft as an Agile coach, this was a key part of the learning. But as I've talked to people this year, I realized that this curve is really influencing all of us right now, as we've dealt with multiple changes and we've all kind of gone into this trough or this point of chaos. And it might be more than one change that everyone's dealing with. So yes, we all work remote, and some of us had kids at home, and you had that change to deal with, or somebody got sick in your home and you had that change to deal with. So when you have multiple changes, this curve dips down lower and lower and lower. And so it's important for you as a coach or a scrum master or even a leader or team member even, that when you start to see somebody's performance go down, you might want to get curious about what's their context and maybe where they are on this curve. You might even draw out this curve for them and talk about these stages. And the other part is the new way of working. Once you've kind of integrated the new learning, it might be better. It may not be. You might just kind of come back to where you were. So that's another important thing to check out with your colleagues. So what I would like you to do is you can either scan this QR code if you have a device handy to do that, or just go ahead and enter that URL. Let me get that in there real quick. And we're going to do a quick Menti poll. All right. And I'd like to first find out, where do you feel you are right now on this change curve? So I'll give you a little time to get in there. And just pick 1, 2, 3, or 4. So are you still kind of wrestling with some of the challenges of assumptions? Have you started experimenting with new ideas? Have you integrated some of that new learning? Or have you reached that new status quo, whatever that is? All right, I see 14 in so far. 16. Let's see where we're at. All right, so some are still wrestling with it, and that's not surprising. Some are starting to experiment. A few have integrated the new learnings, and some have achieved that new status quo. I'm always in 4. Well, good. Thank you. All right, I'll give it another second, see if anybody else wants to vote. All right, then let me jump to the next one. So what do you think your new status quo might be? Do you think things will just be okay? Do you think it'll be a little bit better? Or do you see some new opportunities after some of the things that have happened this year in particular? So going into 2021, do you see new possibilities in how you might work? All right, so I see people are jumping into that poll. Let's see where we are so far. All right, some are saying just okay, some a bit better, and some are seeing new opportunities. So what is something that you noticed from these 2 polls and how people responded? You can go ahead and put it in chat, or if you want to open up audio, you're welcome to do that too. What did you notice between these two polls?
So I'm not sure if it's between the two poles, but I guess more people find it like generally we are more optimistic than pessimistic.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Regardless of where people are, people always see change positively. Yeah. Hope for a better future. Yeah. So another thing that I will add is everyone did have a different answer. So going back to our first poll here, when you draw out that curve for somebody else, don't assume you know where they are. Don't assume your whole team is in the same place. Every individual travels this curve a little bit differently and at a different time frame. So while most of your team might be here, or even they've kind of hit a new status quo, it's still worthwhile checking in with everyone to see, is somebody still here? Is somebody still struggling with all the changes that have happened? And what can you do as a Scrum Master or coach to help them with that? So even in a challenging year like this, and maybe you've gotten most of the team through there, it's still worth checking in, and I would say even doing some one-on-ones if you're not doing those, and just occasionally just check in and say, hey, how are things? If you were to put a point on this curve, where are you now? Okay. So now let me turn it back over to Savita for some more ideas. Do you want me to keep doing the slides, or do you
You
want to
can
run?
keep on the
Okay.
slide. So this is very interesting. So one of the learning for me is that everyone has different experience. Some people have gone through working with distributed teams or used to of doing some work from home, but some of the team members, it was really new for them to start working from home. And every person has different speed and way of learning the new things or unlearning the old things and adjusting with the new environment. So which brings to my point of, even if you are able to listen what is happening within the team and you make your observation, you cannot reflect back your observation every time to your team members during the meeting. It might be very interruptive from them. So it might happen that you see someone doing this, and it happened to me, and someone think that, oh, I have a question. No, I'm just putting my hand on my head. Don't tell me, hey, you have a question. No, I didn't. I don't. And it happens all the time because we cannot see the full body language. We don't know where we are sitting, on a table or chair or bed or couch. We can't see the whole environment. So observation is good, but bringing a lot of thinking and inference right in the middle of the meeting could be disruptive for your team for the ongoing conversation. So what we can do, I would like to make a clear distinction between what I mean by an observation and what is careful observation. So you can say that observation is you sense the environment, conversation, or anything, whatever is happening during the meeting or conversation. You perceive based on what you hear or see, and you start thinking, and your thinking could be impacted by your own opinion or based on your own biases, based on your environment, your work environment. So I keep on sharing about work environment because when we were working in person, we were sharing the same work environment. Now we are all sharing different work environments. Everyone's house is different. Everyone is sharing their own work environment with their family members. So the whole scenario is different. So what you might be doing instead is to bring the careful observation, which is observe, take the note about your observation, pay full attention to what is happening, and suspend your thinking. Okay. So when I say suspend your thinking, during the conversation, don't bring in your own judgment. Don't think that, hey, this person is not paying attention. He is a bad person. He is careless. No, it might be that this person's small kid is bugging him and you can't see in the screen. Anything could be happening in the environment. So bring in the careful observation perspective. And when you take the note, so I have a tool to share in the next slide. It's called observation log, which I use. So you can take your simple notebook or whatever, and you are in the meeting or any conversation. You can create this simple table or you can customize as per your own need. So it is very simple. It has the date of the meeting or discussion, because sometimes it happens that you don't want to reflect back anything which happened 2 months ago or 6 months ago. So take the note, because whenever you get time, you can see whether it makes sense for now to bring it up again with the team or not. So keep the date. Behavior, what are the key behaviors of the team? What about their energy, collaboration, openness? Do they speak during the conversations? Or they are always off camera, on camera, whatever stands out for you, few things. And then about people's action or reaction. So, oh, this person is always in the defensive mode, or this person always asks many questions, the other person never asks any question. Any kind of reaction people have during the conversation which stands out for you, you can keep a note. Then anything about your own insights about the discussion. Okay, so you think something happened which was not visual, like the tone of the person was very high. So keep your judgment aside. You can say tone was high instead of writing that person was angry. So that person might not be angry. That person's headphone might be on the high volume. Okay, so just put in your insight. And so after the conversation, you can look back and you may decide, okay, I think this behavior makes sense to bring it back to the team and discuss during retrospective. Or I see this is a very weird behavior I noticed today. I might like to have one-on-one coaching conversation with someone in the team. Or what you can do is, everyone is so busy, you don't get to work on them right away. You can, from this log, you can find some common patterns. If you see something one time, that's okay. If it's repetitive, you would like to discuss with your team. So you can infer some common patterns and write down some action plan. Action plan will help you to look into whether whatever you decided after the retrospective or coaching conversation, whether it's working or not, or whether you or the person who took the ownership worked on that or not. So this is a very simple tool. You don't need anything fancy. You can keep in your notebook or Word document, and you can use it. It has been very, very helpful for me since we started working from home. So we learned few things, few tips and techniques to improve our observation today. And we are open to discuss some questions if you have.
So you can, if you want to open up audio, you can do it that way, or, oops, sorry about that. If you want to go back on Menti, let me go ahead and get that queued up for you. So I can, because then you can upvote each other's questions if you'd like.
While you're doing that, one thing that Savita, you mentioned that I want to echo, that would be when you mentioned about the hand gesture. Typically, when I stand like this, like my hands crossed, people think I'm defensive or I'm blocked, and it's not. No, it's my easy way of standing. It doesn't mean that I'm uncomfortable or anything like that. And one thing that I'm not sure if you kind of mentioned it about careful observation would be to look for more than one sign to drag some information or to deduce something about it. So not only on one thing, like decide that this is not the right behavior or whatever result you want to get out of it.
Thank you so much, Shaheen, for sharing this. I know that I went to a coaching class and we learned about how to read the body gestures and reflect back to the client.
Mhm.
And I noticed that in the class, everyone has started reflecting back too much. It became annoying for other people.
Right.
And that's what sometimes Scrum Masters and coaches do in the online meetings without understanding what it really means to do.
Do I see Andy having a question? Yeah.
Yeah, 3 observations. It's a study where they either put people in the dark and ask if they could read someone else's emotions under total darkness. Another study is about video conference, if they could read another person's study using voice only. So that's 2 studies. In terms of psychological safety, the norm that they observe is that all people have an equal amount of speaking time. So sometimes you have to spot the introverts or make sure as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach that everybody in the room has a say in the issue and all that. So sometimes you can read what's going on just by voice, even if they have their camera turned off. So you can have someone turn off and then you can read about it. Third point is please don't go all on it now. It's called Going Horizontal, the game. It does crash the site. It's a small company. What basically they do is they believe in, they don't believe in hierarchy. They already wrote a book on it. They have a training on it. It's going horizontal. The principle of it is, the game basically is someone would say, talk for 3 minutes. You could click on a card and it says, this is the speaker. Others, what they have, let's say you have 3 other listeners, is they have the card where they have to learn to listen through the lens of the speaker. So basically they listen in the form of, let's say, the challenge they're facing and things like that. So they have 3 steps to do: listen, reflect back more or less, and drawings. So without using your form, I could basically reflect back what a drawing you might show or not show. The third step is something new that they added. So I do that to teach about listening skills. Some coaches like it because it's forced you to listen in a specific skill. So I'm listening without having to take notes. So you might have to take notes, but through a specific lens, and enhance their listening. So others don't hate it, but like all tool depends on who uses it and how much you believe in it. That's it. I have my superpower t-shirt.
Yeah, so a couple of responses there. This is why I always encourage the use of the chat tool in any online event. So it gives the introverts that opportunity, which I strongly identify as an introvert. I need that processing time to think about my responses. And if I can do that in chat and later respond to it, to some question or topic, then that works for me. That's also why I try to scan the chat as a facilitator and make sure that people are recognized. But as a team, you really should do that. So don't leave that up to the Scrum Master, the coach. Really encourage your entire team to look out for each other on chat and be able to bring the chat conversation into the audio part of the conversation as well. Savita, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think I really liked the small activity or the game that Andy mentioned. So I'm really appreciative that you shared some game. I would like to play with my team and let him know how it goes.
All right. Any other questions?
Any questions, comments, any tips, tricks, what you have been using in your own workplace?
Hi, just on the topic of not being, so my teams are in the complete dark. Nobody has video on. It's very, very rare, only once in a while. Very difficult. So I think what I started in last week is, because we have quiet ones, like never on chat, never on video, very, very little. I've broken up like the retrospectives. I've done like breakout rooms so that I don't have to be in the room, for just to give people a chance to talk to each other. Because one of the things that the digital forum doesn't really support is group talking. Like one person unmutes, the other person mutes, so that whole, there's no real interaction. So especially when we're in teams of 5, 7, 9 people, it gets broken up a little bit. But so I've started breaking up the retros so that it's smaller groups, so they can all have, 2 or 3 people, so they can all have their mics unmuted and talk to each other like a normal human conversation, like a normal face-to-face conversation. Yeah, that's my share. Thanks. Thank you so much. The tool is great, by the way. I love the log. I'll be using it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Along those lines, you might just encourage them to keep mics open. That might be difficult with your particular situation. But sometimes hearing just a or a sneeze or something like, oh, sorry, whatever is appropriate. For some, it might be God bless you or something else. But just to hear what's happening in that other person's space. But we also have to remember that in remote space, everyone's bringing part of the meeting room with them, and we have to acknowledge that. So what you're doing with the breakout rooms is great. I'm guessing probably several people here are familiar with liberating structures. So the 1, 2, 4 all liberating structures, where everyone spends like a minute thinking about the problem and then getting into a pair, which gives it much easier for the introverts. And then getting into 4s. And so that buildup kind of helps collect those ideas as well. It helps open up conversation. Another thing that I've done with many of my teams is I will just tell them, I'm going to be on early, stand up, whatever. And I'll usually get the question, why? And I said, just because somebody will be curious. Somebody will be curious and come on, and we'll just start chit-chatting like you did in the exercise. And of course, I'll respect that when the meeting starts, we'll stop that. But sometimes the conversation continues after the meeting, and it helps open things up. I've certainly had those teams where nobody wants a camera on. But if you can find ways to have non-work conversations, it really can help open up. So.
some of the things which my team did is that every Friday lunchtime, they booked gossip session. Nothing. They were missing having water cooler chats, and someone just popped up someday, and I saw that gossip. That was the title, and we were so much laughing. And every Friday lunchtime, we'll just do gossip, just to feel connected with other team members. It's working so well.
Yeah.
Some these small silly things make
And are
an
you
mimic the virtual
and
environment.
are you using lean coffee for facilitating that?
I think it would be lean gossip then.
Yeah, lean gossip. So I think Aaron has a question. Am I right, Aaron? You?
Yes. So I have a take that tends to be pretty, I don't know if it's controversial, but I think it's sort of an anti-pattern. What I've sensed over the years, and having used a lot of, or been part of a lot of these techniques and a lot of the tools, is that they're driven, there's a substantial bias towards people who are coaches that are empaths, that have, you know, a far more developed capability and who they are and how they engage psychologically with people. And that creates an expectation that everybody else should either have to do that, want to do that, or just needs to learn that they should want to do that. And what I found is that, you know, there's obviously a pretty diverse world of personality and psychological types, that I just sort of come out in front and just say that that's just not what I'm doing. And that wherever you happen to be, you know, and I've been doing remote work for about 14 years now. I mean, like dedicated. And so I don't have a problem not seeing people. I don't have a problem with people being on mute. You know, I can, it's just sort of like I have a rhythm with being able to work with people this way. And sorry for the background noise. It's my neighbor. It's nice weather. I'm in northern New Jersey, so it's about 65 today. So everyone's running around, which probably isn't good. But so anyways, the context becomes, you know, I need to nudge you into this behavior, and then you'll realize it'll all be good in the end. And what I've recognized is a lot of people don't want to be nudged. They don't want corporate psychotherapy, you know, even if it's in their best interest, et cetera, et cetera. They either want to do what they know how to do a little better, or they don't want to feel bad about not knowing how to do something. And what I found is just approaching it much more sort of flat, and saying, look, this is what we'd like to get done here. This is what we're supposed to get done, or, you know, what we've all agreed to get done. Here's a whole bunch of different ways we could try to do it, you know, on a spectrum. And then, you know, let's roll, let's vote, let's choose, let's, it's not, you know, we're not signing a lifelong contract. So if we pick one, we don't have to keep doing it, even if we don't like to do it. And I've just found that to just be far easier, and just requires just, and I love the self-assessment tools. And so I've thrown those out there to people. Some do them, some don't. I don't sit there and say, well, I only got 6 of 12, you know, and just bring any of that. I just have the 6 I do. And I'll ask them, do you want to see the results of those 6? Or do you just want me to do it one-on-one, or you want me to invite just the 6 that did it? You know, I'm not trying to do this to guilt you into doing it or anything, you know, just you tell me. And I found, you know, you might pick up a few more that do it, and that's great. And then you'll realize the other ones don't want to do it because they don't like the assessment model. So anyways, I know it's a long-winded way, sorry about that, but that's sort of my anti-pattern. It doesn't mean I don't love all of these approaches, but it just means I've tried not to just be a corporate, you know, psychotherapist, basically, if that makes any sense.
It makes total sense, and I agree with you, actually. That same team I mentioned that never turned their videos on, anytime I ran a retrospective for them, they were always very short. So I just said, you know what? I think you guys can just run this yourself. So I showed them lean coffee. I said, you guys just run this. You decide when it happens. You decide what changes occur. I said, if you want to do it every every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, they settled on twice a week or every 2 weeks. They ran it. They came up with an improvement or two. Sometimes they decided they had no topics and they cancel it. I was fine. They got stuff done.
Exactly.
Some of my fellow coaches got a little, they did the raised eyebrow at that. I went, you know what? They're working and they know where to find me if they need help. So, yeah. And so as a coach or coach, scrum master, manager, whatever, you've got to figure out what your team needs and what they don't need. And so I'm totally with you on that. Don't try to force stuff on them. Find out what they need, and if they don't need anything, just say, all right, you know where to find me. Here I am. I'll just check in every once in a while just to be sure. But otherwise, go for it. So, and some teams will self-manage very well on their own. So, but thanks for raising it, Aaron. Good point.
So I see some people are dropping off. We are at 4. So we can stay a few more minutes if you want to have more topic ideas to discuss or have more questions. But thank you everyone for joining. If you are going to leave and you have more questions to ask later, you can just connect over LinkedIn or Twitter, or if you want to read more about listening, I have a long article on this, more tips and tricks around on this website.
And with that being said, thank you, Savita and Mark. We would very honored to have you guys. Please give them a round of applause virtually or using your hand, however you're participating in the meeting right now. And yeah, so if you guys have time, Savita and Mark would be here for another like maybe 5-10 minutes to have questions or ask them later on offline. Thank you for joining us.
And sorry, I forgot my pizza hat. So
yeah. Pizza.
Any other questions?
So Mark, I've been using liberating structures for a while, and one of the ones I've used, and I've taken classes or been part of being a user of it, an end user of it, and then sort of just leveraged them at a certain point. So what I've noticed is that the in-person ones are extremely facilitator dependent, and the online ones are the exact opposite. And it sort of freaked out the coaches that I've worked with, because I have some, if you know any of these, I'm sure you do, but so I'll use improv prototyping with almost no facilitation. And that's almost impossible to do in person, like if you're in a workshop, because it's just so, it's so intense.
Would you mind to kind of briefly explain that one for the people who are still here?
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Just so they know.
So improv prototyping would be take a challenge you have, and actually, and the way I'll do it is I'll sort of link it together. I'll do like an improv interview first, and then I'll do like a 1-2-4-1 where people get to choose sort of what's the biggest challenge in a small group they have amongst 4 people. And then I'll dump them into an improv prototyping. What improv prototyping is let's say my problem is I have a person on a team who just doesn't seem to on a daily basis just follow up with their DevOps, CI/CD, check-in, check-out stuff. Like they're just being sort of anti or behavioral, passive aggressive. What do I do? Let's say that's my problem. And it could be any problem. It could be problems in life, whatever. I'm just trying to give a simple example. And so what I do is I then explain that problem. I act it out myself and, and the person, she might have, for whatever, she'll just say, no, I'll do it. And then she still doesn't do it. And then I am a director with the other 3 people, then they act it out. And then I see what they, how they acted out. I say, well, why don't you try this? Why don't you correct that? Then they keep doing it a few iterations. And then in the end, you know, there's some learning out of that, right? Like, because they can deviate, right? So they can do positive deviation, whatever. Which you can just basically let people do, right? You don't need a coach to do this, right? I mean, once you sort of give people the space to do it in, they can kind of just run, and they can do as many times as they want. So, and that tends to be one most people just don't do in life, because they just think it's really hard. And in person, it actually is really hard, because you get like theatrical setups and people are doing props. I mean, it's just like, it's kind of not realistic unless you're like running a big NGO with a big budget and you're doing massive retreats and things like that. So what I've learned is that there's a whole bunch of tooling, because I have a bunch of others like this, that have generally been perceived to be incredibly difficult to do. And they generally are in person. And I've started to just try them online. Some, you know, kind of just don't turn out real well. But I found most of them actually, the friction, to be blunt, I've noticed has been the coaching online. Whereas in person, it's absolutely essential, because the heuristic, the routine of it requires all of these inputs and outputs and stages. Whereas the self-organizing online, assuming everybody is, you know, has been doing some version of this for a little bit of a little while, they know how to kind of come in and out and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if you've seen any shift, and number one, like what your take might be on that, and number two, just any shift in the tools we use online. Because I noticed just a lot of people are doing just a lot of simple stuff like we always used to.
Yeah.
And about 6 months ago, I said, all right, this is going to go on for like a while, like year or two. So it's like, I just can't keep doing the simple stuff. So what the hell, let's just shovel and go for it and see what sticks. And that's sort of what I've been doing. And I found it just works. And what I found, and this is the key, is that it is back to my earlier point around it, about personality types, empath leaders being the dominant coaches. This process works with less empath oriented people far better virtually, because of the closed nature of us having these screens. We're all flattened on the same plane together.
Yeah.
Whereas in a dominant environment that it's an empath led coach, he or she is the dominant, you know, process leader, basically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So
I brought a ton of stuff up. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot there, and I see others are online, so I want to make sure there's chance for other questions. But I brought up the array of liberating structures, and there's new ones being created. I was trying to quickly scan the menu, but I can't do that and listen. So multitasking's not my friend. But I can say for a lot of these, there are virtual versions, and even the original liberating structures were designed so that you didn't need a sophisticated facilitator background, really. Yeah. And I was also pulling up Slack on the side. If you want to know more about it, there is a liberating structures Slack community with a virtual channel, which has been crazy busy all year.
It's great. Really good.
Yeah. And they were talking about even documenting some of the virtual procedures. I don't know where they are with that. I haven't been able to keep up with it. But a lot of this stuff has happened online. I find it interesting, your observation about the style doesn't matter as much online. I'd love for you to write like a blog post or something on that, because it'd be really cool to point a few people at that. For me, there is a difference in style. There are people, just like anything in our practice, some that rely more heavily on tools, and some that realize the tools can just get you there. It's not so much what the tools can do, it's what the people need to do. So it kind of gets that, again, what does the team need, or what do the people need out of the exercise? The more you can just set the space, whatever the exercise is, and let them do the work they need to do, the better off you're going to be in any kind of online facilitation environment. So that's my somewhat long but still short answer to all of that. So, but yeah, happy to talk to you offline on that one too, because I'm in that community. So if you want to chat there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Were there any other questions? I know a few other people hung on. I just wanted to check.
Mark, just one quick question. You mentioned the online version of the virtual liberating structures. Was there a link for that or some way to discover it?
I don't know yet. I will try to dig around for it. I know they were talking about it in the virtual channel.
Oh, yeah.
You also noticed pandemic response. That one popped up about April, that particular channel.
Is that
this
you can search it too. You can just do a search for liberating structures Slack, and then there's also a blog.
Okay.
Blog.
Okay.
The main blog is sort of, it's like a, you know, whatever, it's an old school blog that's sort of like the feeder to everything. And then from those two, you can, you know, it's like kind of a BBS 2.0.
Right,
you can just put your questions in there, and everybody jumps in immediately all over the world, you know.
Yeah, I would really highly recommend just go in the liberating structure Slack community. They're super awesome. There's all kinds of events going on where you can try things out.
Exactly.
Cool.
And they have a living Google Calendar of all of the events in the world. So, you know, I attend those big ones in Denmark, Netherlands, Seattle's sort of the, you know, the Jerusalem of it all. And then
there's been tons of them. This summer.
There's a really good one in LA now, which I really like. And
there's a Texas group that was doing quite a few.
In Austin, there's a really good group in Austin too. In New York's good. So
so I would recommend. I don't know if there's any. I think there's even some online classes now where they're teaching some of this stuff, but I would still recommend, if you once things are a little bit more normal and it's safer to travel, I would highly recommend going to one of these liberating structures immersions. That's their fundamentals class. You will go through a ton of these, but you also get introduced to some of the people in the community, and I highly recommend going to one of those if you really want to up your skill set there. So
I've used them quite a few times and seen them at some of the conferences and things like that. Gone through some of the classes, but my thing is now how do I adapt this to a virtual environment? And I've been sort of playing around on my own with it, but I'd love to tap into the greater mind of the community.
That channel right there is the place to go in their Slack community.
Okay. There's a good group in Vancouver too. There's a nice group in Vancouver also.
Maybe that's a good point for us to bring on the next speaker for being a liberating structure virtual speaker to teach us or help us run some of those ones. We had ones in person ran and liberating. Remember, I'm not sure Wayne you were there or not, and Kemi was there. She ran one or two for us.
It's good.
Okay, so we are 15 minutes after the hour. Again, I want to thank Savita and Mark to spend the 1 hour with us, and even more than that, we enjoyed the conversation. Again, connect with these two great people. There are more to learn from them than just 1 hour here, and they are always open to questions being answered. So thank you, everyone, and be for the lookout for December. We haven't yet decided the timing, but we are going to have one in December as well. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day or night.
And hold on. I promised you I was going to do this. In celebration of your anniversary there, balloons.
Cool. And I just put in the Liberating Structures Slack invite, so you can just
excellent
on that and then just go straight into it.
Nice. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
If any of you want, I have a list of a bunch of stuff, so I can, send it to you, whatever. I put my LinkedIn in there too. So that was great talk. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for hanging on. If you have questions, that's how you can get hold of Savita and I.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.